Now available in paperback and ebook. The Man Who Rules the World. John Haynes must bring together men and gods to overcome a threat that seeks to destroy the planet. The Man Who Rules the World. Now available in paperback and e-readers everywhere. Actor Tony Todd passed away this week at 69 years old from cancer. Now, Tony Todd appeared in over 100 movies over the course of his 40-year career and is known as an icon of the horror, fantasy, and sci-fi genre, and is known for his signature roles in iconic horror movies like Candyman, and is also known for playing the role of William Bloodworth in the Final Destination franchise, not to mention making appearances in roles in legendary films such as Platoon, Night of the Living Dead, The Crow, and many other films, and has also played the brother of Star Trek character Worf in Star Trek The Next Generation and Star Trek Deep Space Nine, and has made appearances in many TV shows such as Smallville and many other shows, and has also done voiceover work that is legendary, such as playing Icon in the animated series Young Justice, and also received a nomination for an award for playing the role of Venom in the Marvel video game Spider-Man 2. Now, Tony Todd was always a gifted actor and was born on December 4th of 1954 in Washington, D.C., and grew up in Hartford, Connecticut, attending schools like Hartford Public High School, and started his career as related to acting, as going out here, attending the University of Connecticut, and went on to study theater at the Tony Award-winning Eugene O'Neill Theater Institute and the Trinity Repertory Theater in Providence, Rhode Island, and that's how he started developing his acting skills, and those acting skills were honed as related to the Eugene O'Neill Theater that gave him that distinct presence that I really enjoyed seeing whenever I saw him on TV or in film. I mean, Tony Todd had a very powerful presence in whatever role he played, and as he was starting his career again in the 80s with the movie Platoon, I mean, he started off on a high note because Platoon was basically the best picture for 1987, and him being a part of that film, that basically started his career on a high note. And as he went on to go from starring in the Best Picture of 1986 to going on to do another remake of Night of the Living Dead in 1990, then went on to play his signature role in the horror film Candyman. This was the role that Tony Todd is known for as related to his iconic performance, and many people remember the iconic scene where the Candyman has the bees coming out of his mouth, and Tony Todd basically did that scene, making a deal with the producers that he would be paid $1,000 for every time he was stung by a bee, and in addition to his salary, wound up getting $23,000 for doing that scene in Candyman. And Candyman went on to become a 90s horror classic because of Tony Todd's legendary performance. And Candyman basically was a legendary film because this was one of the first horror movies to actually feature a black man as the horror lead character. Before that, in the slasher movies, we usually got white guys like Jason and Freddy Krueger, basically played by white guys. Same thing with Michael Myers. But with Candyman, this was the first time we ever saw a black man in that type of role, and Tony Todd basically just gave one of the best performances of his career in Candyman. And I remember seeing Tony Todd after seeing him in Candyman, seeing him in the 1990s film The Crow, which is another classic. I mean, if we look at Tony Todd, I mean, he had a whole series of films that were just bona fide 90s classics, and he even went after The Crow, wound up in the prison film The Rock. I think that starred I forget what his name is, Nicolas Cage. That was another classic film where
he played a role, and then he starred in Wishmaster, another horror movie, and then went on to be in the Final Destination series. I mean, Final Destination was a huge franchise back in the 90s. I remember just that movie. That movie will scare the crap out of you. I mean, how these people suffer these fates. And again, Tony Todd, as he was doing this and this legendary resume of movies, also starred in a guest appearance as Gilgamesh in Hercules: The Legendary Journeys. I remember watching those episodes and getting so excited because I finally got to see Tony Todd in the Hercules: The Legendary Journeys, and again, he basically again put together one of the great performances on that show. And I loved watching those episodes with Tony Todd, with him on Hercules: The Legendary Journeys. And Tony Todd, again, has a resume of just absolutely fantastic movies that define every kid who was a millennial. You basically saw Tony Todd, whether it was movies or on TV. And Tony Todd also continued to act in theater, acting in plays like August Wilson's Kid Henley II, The Captain's Tiger, which he got a Helen Hayes nomination, and he also starred in things like Othello and other different plays. So he was an actor with a tremendous skill and range, and that was one of the things I loved about watching Tony Todd, was his just tremendous skill and range, and how he could just play virtually every character. I mean, the 90s for me was a golden age of cinema where I was getting to see some truly great performers. I mean, seeing great performers come up and rise. I mean, seeing people like Tony Todd, people like Keith David, like Sally Richardson Whitfield. I mean, these are three of what I consider the greatest black actors, along with Michael Dorn, as related to the genre of sci-fi and fantasy. And that was one of the things that I liked about Tony Todd, was he made an impact on the entire genre of fantasy and science fiction. I mean, he was a black actor who just showed how much range he had to play all these different kinds of roles in science fiction and fantasy, and was one of the strongest presences in fantasy and science fiction as related to the genre. I mean, he basically, again, had this just tremendous skill and range, and he was one of those guys. I mean, you don't really get to see that many black people in science fiction and fantasy, and it just made me proud every time I would see Tony Todd up there giving a performance in the entire genre of science fiction, whether it be in Candyman, whether it be in Final Destination, whether it be on Hercules and Xena, whether it be in Star Trek. I mean, it was just happy to see him playing those kinds of roles on screen and showing that a black man could play these kinds of roles and play them with great skill. And I was also happy to see him also further expand into doing voiceovers, because voiceovers is tough as an acting job. You have to literally just let your voice speak for the character. And Tony Todd went out here and he let his voice speak for the character, going out here doing voiceover work in shows like Transformers Prime as Dreadwing, and his other signature roles, in addition to playing the Candyman and playing the lead in Final Destination. He also is known for playing the milestone character Icon in Young Justice. And again, I'm just proud to see this brother going out here and again playing Icon, because the way he presented himself as Icon captured the heart and soul of that character. And as he continued on, with his career, he then went on to play the voice of Zoom in the CW Flash show, and also was playing other characters as related to things. I mean, he played doing voiceover work as Venom in Marvel's Spider-Man 2, and also played the Fallen in Revenge of the Fallen and Darkseid in the DC animated movie universe from 2015 to 2020. So his resume is extremely impressive, and again, I really was so proud of Tony Todd as related to all the great acting roles as related to science fiction and fantasy, showing that we could have a voice in these roles. And he was a gifted actor that I was really proud of. And again, I really enjoyed seeing Tony Todd's performances in film. And as I was watching a lot of Tony Todd performances in the 90s and the 2000s and the 2010s. I remember in about 2015 when my mother was in the hospital and I was writing The Man Who Rules the World. Tony Todd's voice was the one that was speaking to me as God Cassius, the villain of The Man Who Rules the World. I mean, when I was writing Man Who Rules the World, I always imagined Tony Todd in the role of God Cassius because of his just incredible, just strong masculine presence and his intense energy. And I wish I could have gotten a chance to see him in that role, but sadly, he's passed away. And as he's passed away, sadly, I'm sorry for the loss of Tony Todd, because we lost a truly talented actor, an icon of the genre of horror, science fiction, and fantasy, one of the black icons of horror, science fiction, and fantasy. And I'm really saddened to hear about the passing of Tony Todd. We lost a truly great performer, and according to people who've attended horror cons, a genuinely kind man who basically took time with fans all over the place, wherever he went, whatever con he went to. I've heard from people saying that he was just very kind and very polite to people. I mean, he was again, sad to hear about this talented man. Now, Tony Todd, as he has passed, leaves behind 2 children, and he has relatives in acting. I think he has a sister named Monique Dupree, who's an actress, and he has a brother as well, Isaiah Lyons. So he has family, and again, family as related to entertainment, and again, making inroads as related to making an impact on things. But Tony Todd will always be remembered for his brilliant gift of being an actor, and also be remembered for going out here and showing that a black performer can go out here and be the lead in the horror genre, by being the lead in 2 franchises, Final Destination, and being the lead in the Candyman franchise, not to mention going out here and playing iconic roles such as the voice of Icon, the voice of Venom, and the voice of the Fallen in Transformers Revenge of the Fallen. I mean, and also playing the voice of Venom. I mean, he will always be remembered for having that impact on the entire genre of science fiction and fantasy, and will always be remembered as a trailblazer. And I'm again saddened for the passing of Tony Todd. And he's one of those guys I can honestly say to rest in power, because he's done great work here on Earth, and he's been called back to God. And I'm hoping that basically people will remember Tony Todd and remember all the contributions he's given to us as an entertainer and as a performer in the genre of science fiction and fantasy, and the impact he's had on us all as related to his performances.
Now available in paperback and e-readers, John Haynes' Illuminati, The Man Who Rules the World, takes on the head of the global elite in this all-new action-packed John Haynes series adventure. Get your copy of John Haynes' Illuminati in paperback and e-readers at Amazon.com and online booksellers everywhere. Support Black-owned and Black-operated digital broadcast media. www.niceradionetwork.com. Nice Radio Network, broadcasting 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.